Meb, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me.
So, Meb, it's kind of surreal to be speaking with you today. You're someone who I've looked up to as a runner since I started running myself about 20 years ago. And, what I've always loved about you is your willingness to meet fans, to talk about your story, and just to be an ambassador to the sport. And it's not every day that we have the chance to catch up with an Olympian who's won so many major marathons. So, thanks so much for your time.
Jason, it's nice to meet you via Skype, but it's always nice to be able to meet and greet fellow runners because we have something that is really common ground that put us together. That we know when you go 5K or 10K or half marathon or full marathon or the training that goes into it to have appreciation and the respect for each other. And I felt that every runner has something to share with you, and I'm just always honored people look up to me as an example to be an ambassador for them.
Yeah, that's an interesting and I think very unique aspect to the sport of running is that, you can be an Olympic medalist or you can be someone who's just getting started with their first 5K and you're experiencing a lot of the same things. And I think that's so unique and powerful about the sport.
Well, when we have a point of starting point and finishing point, you know what it takes to get there. And you have a mutual respect to say, hey, whether you're trying to qualify for Olympic trials or whether you're trying to qualify for the Olympic or you're doing your first distance run, whether it's a 5K up to the marathon, you understand that it is, it's hard, it's difficult, it's challenging. And you can relate to people and you say, hey, when I ran the half marathon somewhere, you know exactly what you went through and challenging. But that's the uniqueness of our sport that sometimes also we share the same roads, whether you're running at the Boston Marathon or New York City Marathon or wherever you are, you can say, hey, you know what, an elite athlete can come down to your local 5K or 10K or half marathon and you can see them in tangible. That's the beauty of it. You can be in the same elevator, you could be in the same starting line corral, you could be in the middle of the run and just having a good time. And I think that's how the sport running unites us together.
Yeah, and we shared the same roads in 2014 when I ran the Boston Marathon. It was the year that you won. I remember hearing when I was, in the last couple miles of the race, Meb won, everyone was going crazy on the side of the road and it gave me a huge boost, as those last couple miles at Boston. It's just incredible. Now, Meb, you have a new book coming out, 26 Marathons, and I want to kind of take a step back and talk a little bit more about how it all started for you. I don't think it's a surprise that you grew up in Eritrea, you experienced a lot of adversity, and you immigrated to the U.S. when you were young. I'd love to hear, how you think your childhood prepared you for distance running, if at all.
Definitely, my childhood has molded me to be the person that I am. Because when you don't have opportunities or chances, or when you're born in a war, and obviously, I was at one point I was so hungry that I remember one day eating dirt just to survive. So when you have those upbringing, or you seen military with they taking kids who are 12 years old or older to be soldiers, you don't take things for granted. We never had it. My brothers and I never had really the opportunity to go to school, but my parents wanted to do something positive to try not control. I can't control your future, but try to give the best thing that you can to provide for your kids. And my dad was wanted by the Ethiopian military, so he's going to get killed or he's going to get prison. So my mom encouraged him to try to save his life and hopefully that if he does make it a safe land, that he will look after us. And, the 225 miles that he walked in about 7 days was not the biggest challenge that he was faced. What he faced was, 6 kids and a wife behind. Is he ever going to see us ever again? So he was having nightmares. There's no hotels, there's no places to sleep. He didn't have any money, or he would sleep on a tree sometimes because if he sleeps on the ground in the wilderness, there's hyenas, scorpions, snakes, and military that can take him. And so he would just sleep with his legs crossed on a tree, and sometimes he have to have nightmares and things like that. But fortunately for us, he made it. With the grace of God, he still believes that if he can make that journey, God bless him indeed. And when he lived in Sudan, he lived odd jobs. He lived there for a year and a half, and then eventually made it to Italy, where I have a half sister who lives there, and her mom was there, and she helped him escape to Italy, Milano. And when he got in Milano, he had odd jobs, cleaning offices or be custodian and shoveling the snow. And one day, my sister's mom introduced him to his boss, and they both worked together for their boss, and asked them, one day my dad asked him, can you loan me 10 million lire, 10 million lire in Italian? That was about 6,000 US dollars in 1986, and that was to save the family. And Dr. Brindisi, their boss, said, is that to save one person or to save everybody? And he said, no, with the money that we have saved, it would save everybody. And Dr. Brindisi gave him a 10 million lire cash. And he said, this is not a loan, it's a gift. And that's how we got saved. And so, yeah, there was a lot of people that it's a team effort. My dad himself didn't do it. And my mom has to be the husband and the wife in Eritrea. Bear in mind, in Eritrea, when she's raising 6 kids, there's no electricity, no running water, and she has to farm the land so you can with crops and hope that it rains, and she have to chop it off and take the haze and the grain separated through cows and doing the labor stuff. So it was not an easy task. Go to the store and get a milk or bread, and she has to make it from scratch. And so both my parents worked extremely hard, and and we seized the opportunity that was provided in front of us. So when we came to the United States on October 21st, 1987, almost 32 years ago, they told us this is the land of opportunity. Don't make sure you don't waste those opportunities, because we didn't have them, your uncles didn't have them, your cousins don't have them. So make sure you utilize it the best you can, work hard, make us proud. And my dad woke us up at 4:30 in the morning to learn English through the dictionary. So that's the start of it. But through hard work and perseverance, it molds who you are. You don't take things for granted when you are preparing for the Boston Marathon or New York City Marathon or any other races. After having overcome the adversity that I did, you just want to maximize it. And if you run or win, and then you feel proud, and if you don't, then you say, you know what, it's a lot better scenario than it was when I was a child. So you kind of put things in perspective.
Yeah, I can't imagine how much that does put things in perspective, and how your life has changed so much over the years because of your running. Now, did you play any kind of or organized sports as a kid? Were you active in any kind of way, with structured athletics?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in Eritrea, some of the fun stuff that we did was we didn't have a soccer ball. So what we made was if a sleeve of a shirt or a sweater, is old and they got thrown away the sweater. So we'd cut the sleeves part of it, and we would knit the bottom part of it, and then stuff it with as much plastic as you can, with plastic basically to make it round and also bouncy. And then we would to make 2 layers of it, and then you have a soccer ball, so a makeshift soccer. And that's what my first love or my first passion was, soccer. I didn't know running was a sport, to be honest, until probably late in 7th grade when we came to the United States. I'm changing a little bit the thing, but when I came here, when the United States, they said, how you want to play? A kid in the neighborhood said, football. We didn't speak English, so they said, we heard football. And growing up in Italy for a year and a half, football is soccer. So we were ready to play soccer, and for our sake, they brought a football, and that was American football with, ready to throw. We're like, football, well, this is not football, and we have to, but anyway, we throw the ball and try to run with, catch it and stuff. But no, I love soccer. It's my first love. And then my brothers and I have 2 older brothers. We used to dribble the soccer ball from a North Park area where the Kinney Foot Locker, or what Kinney or / Foot Locker now, was held at Morley Field. And we would, it's half a mile away from our apartment. We would go over there and we see people running. I'm like, why are the people running? They're crazy. They're not chasing anything. That's when I was first introduced to running. And then a year later in 7th grade is when a PE teacher said, if you run hard, you're going to get a good grade, or DRF if you mess around, and you get a t-shirt with it that says Roosevelt Junior High Club t-shirt that you get if you break 6:15. And I want to make my parents proud. I want to get an A in the class. So I ran as hard as I can. And then at the end of the run, the coach looked at his watch and said he couldn't believe it. He says, you ran a 5:20 mile and on 7th grade, and he said, you're going to go to the Olympics. Bear in mind, this is 1988, an Olympic year. Probably, we started school in September or late of August, which probably the Olympics were going on, but I was not aware of any Olympics at all. I'm like, did I get an A? And I'm pointing to the shirt. They know, where's the shirt? I had no idea what the word Olympic meant. So I have to go to my dad and ask him what it meant. And he says, what'd you do? I'm like, I ran 5:20 in the mile. I was like, tell the truth. I don't think even your oldest brothers even ran that fast. So, and then eventually explained to me how the 5 rings, the 5 continents, and things like that about this. So it was definitely overwhelming, but I wanted to make sure I wanted an A and a t-shirt when I was in 7th grade.
Well, you certainly got it. 55 seconds under that 6:15 barrier for someone who's just getting started with running. That's pretty great. Now, I'm sure, having your gym teacher say, you're going to go in the Olympics and, you learning what the Olympics are. At what point did you actually think to yourself, after you've been running for a little while, wow, I might be able to do this professionally?
My P teacher name is Dick Lord. In fact, I've been in touch with him ever since probably high school and then college. And then now as professional, I just got inducted to this San Diego Hall of Fame just about a couple months ago, and he was there to witness that. And so it's a blessing that I kept in touch with him. But I think for me, when I realized this can be a sport that I can make something was, people knew that can get me a scholarship to college, because in 7th grade, in high school, my yearbook is filled up. It says, don't forget the small people, or we'll see you with an Olympic medals and things like that. They didn't know about marathoning. They knew I was a miler and 2-miler, and the top miler and 2-miler in the nation. But so they knew that people knew that running can open opportunities. And when I got to full scholarship to UCLA, I was not. I was the best guy in the team, but I was not the same best guy in the conference. But I was a goal oriented. I want to be the best in the school, and then I want to be the best in the league, and then hopefully down my senior year, I wanted the best NCAA champion, and both in track and cross country. But to answer your question, was 1997 was the first time I won indoor 5K on the track. I won outdoor 5K, 10K double when they had a 5K prelim in the prelim also. And then my senior year, which is also in 97, I won all that, 44 NCAA titles in 1 year. And I said, oh, maybe this could be a profession. So that was, I remember, I'm like, well, maybe I can make an Olympic team. Maybe I can make a living out of this. Maybe I should turn a pro. But then I thought about it just because my parents always emphasized the key to life is education. Make sure I graduated, and I stuck around for another 2 years. I finished my eligibility in 98, but I had 1 more year left to finish my academics. I stuck around, and then ever since after graduating in 1999 from UCLA, I gave 110% to my running to see what it could take me, and it has to take me way beyond my wild imagination. So I just wanted to see and hope that I can make an Olympic team. And, wearing that USA jersey for the first time was in Sydney, Australia, and the Olympic was a dream come true. And obviously before I left the stadium, they had a prelim for the 10K. I made the Olympic team in the 10K. I finished 12. But and I had the flu that was, when you're in the athlete village, you get sick and you do crazy stuff. So I got sick. And then basically before I finished 12th and I ran my personal best, before I left the stadium, I said, you know what, I'm happy to wear that red, white, and blue, but to be an Olympian, but I want to do something greater, and I want to win a medal for our country. That's all I was thinking before I left the stadium. And honestly, when I made that goal, I didn't think it was going to be in the marathon, because I haven't done a marathon yet. It was in the 10K, and then the following year, I ended up running an American record in the 10K, improved by 40 seconds. So, and then the rest is history. I just kept improving, and I tried a marathon. I did my first marathon in 2002.
It's such an incredible story, and I hear you talk about how your parents told you when you got here, this is the land of opportunity. And then I hear you saying how you want to be the best on the team. You want to be the best in the conference. You want to represent your country. You want to win a medal for your country. Have you always been this ambitious, and does it relate to your parents telling you don't waste this opportunity?
Almost definitely. I mean, for me, I have always been a goal setter. I'd rather and I make them reachable goals. I don't make them like, oh yeah, I want to win a gold medal. No, I want a medal. I don't care what color the medal will be. Or I want to make an Olympic team. Whether it's first, second, third, as good as it can be. You're going to the Olympic team. So, those goals were always oriented with me, and a visionary, you can say it. But at the same time, understand that those opportunities, yes, the back of my head, those opportunities, those chances that are provided for me, I want to make sure I maximize them to the best that I can. And sometimes comes with a price, because I did overwork sometimes. I mean, I always says, I don't want anybody to outwork me. I want to be the best that I can. I was talented, obviously, very talented, but I was not always the most talented guy on the field or the most talented guy in the world. But I want to make sure that I do the best that I can to work hard, and hard work will always overtake talent, and I want to make sure I want to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think there's a line that I love that is something like hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. That I remember just being in high school, and that was my mantra as a cross country runner. And I improved a lot, and I probably got a lot better than I would have if I didn't embrace all that hard work. And it's certainly a great mindset to have as a marathoner, someone who, obviously this is not only a sport that requires a lot of hard work, but the marathon itself is such a unique distance and a challenging distance. When was your first marathon?
I think they've done a study, IQ versus grit, and then today we went and spoke at a elementary school here in Virginia Beach named Creed School, and they had a sign that says "Got grit?" ? And I think sometimes talent can take you so far, but grit will always overtake that, or hard work will always beat talent. And for me, I was, especially being English being second language, I worked extremely hard in high school, worked extremely hard in college, and then and they say, marathon is a great metaphor for life, and then the marathoner, you have to have the grit. You can't have shortcuts about all. You just got to go out there mile by mile. So people always have told me that I would be a beautiful marathon runner when I was in high school, and I was shocked to learn how far it was. They told me it was 26.2. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm a miler and 2-miler. I want to be the best miler and 2-miler that I could be, or 5K, 10K, the best that I could be. And in 2002 though, I made the Olympic team 2000. I want to win another medal for our country. And then 2001, I broke the American record in the 10K. And then 2002 was an odd year. There was no Olympic year, or it was not a world championship year. So I was like, let me just try this marathon thing that people have been telling me about. And I was somewhat excited but nervous at the same time. And I did the New York City Marathon, my first one in 2002. And I got, pretty excited going First Avenue. Everybody just screaming tunnel sounds, and got me a little bit going. And I'm like, oh, this is not that bad. I think I could win this marathon. And got it down to 4 people, and me and 3 other Kenyans. And I said, you know what? I think in worst scenario, I got 4th place, and best scenario, I could still win. And let's do it. And then about from 16 to 19, I was probably in the lead. And then at 19, I started it was 38 degree. I took away my arm warmers, sleeves, and then put cold water on my head. And then bear in mind, it was 38 degrees. That water's been there for 3-4 hours. It was freezing. It kind of shut my engine off. And I threw my gloves away, my beanie away, and I started, getting cold. Instead of doing nice cadence, I started stomping the ground. And I guess I thought I was gonna win. I thought I was gonna be 4th place. Now I was going the other way around, maybe 5th. Maybe 6th, maybe 7th, and then eventually I end up getting 9th place. I end up running the A standard at the time to get was 2:12, sub 2:12, and I ran in 2:12:35 seconds, and I missed by 35 seconds to get the A standard for the Olympics. And obviously I was devastated by the time. I was devastated that my body was not functioning properly, and it took me forever to get the last 2 miles in. And I said, this is my first and last marathon. I never wanted to ever do it again. And my parents were there. My mom was there. I said, well, you know what? No more 5K, 10K, no more marathon for you. Don't do it. My dad was trying to there. I was frozen, so my dad was there to give me a little bit of massage and things. But and then I went back to Eritrea 2 weeks later to my roots for the first time in 13 years or so. I was going over there, and you know what? I saw how, as a child, I used to go to 2 to 3 miles to get woods from climbing trees or find leaves, put in a basket on my head to be able to take it home to have fire so you can cook your food or boil your water. And you have to go 2 to 3 miles to get the water out of the well. And I said, you know what? I guess that temporary discomfort that I went the last 40 minutes or so was not too bad. So I wanted to do another marathon. So that's the reason I ended up coming back to do another marathon.
Yeah, it's good that perspective comes back, and it really teaches you a lot of things. What were you most surprised about with that first marathon? Because it obviously didn't go the way that you were hoping to. And you went from thinking you might win to getting ninth place and missing the standard. From someone who was a very experienced runner at that point, but was running their first marathon, what about the marathon, do you come away with and say, I was not expecting that?
You know, uh, the wall, I guess, if people talk about the wall, they can tell you to pace yourself, you might hit the wall. And that wall was there vividly for me. When I hit you can't see it, but your mind says go, your body says no. And it was the weirdest feeling. So that was the first reality check. And I tell the New Yorker runners, on my first one, I got my PhD. I learned what to do, what not to do. And because I got excited, the overwhelming of the crowd at First Avenue took over my control. I could have control of it, but I said, this is fun. I want to be able, to go for contention for a win, and I went for it. And obviously, it taught me, respect the marathon, because sometimes, like you say, you say easy, I got it. But I learned from my first one that it was not easy. It was a tough to do a marathon. It's very challenging, very can break your heart and it can break your spirit and how difficult it is. You crawling into the finish line, but I'm glad I did that because I learned everything what to do and what not to do, and I throw away my gloves and beanie away. Now I just when it's cold I just still tuck them in, and then if I need them put them back on and things like that. So it can be devastating, but at the same time exhilarating to be able to do a marathon. When you win, it's beautiful and everything is seamless, everything goes flow the way it should be, but then it makes you realize, that one day can be that, and the next month or next marathon, next time you do a marathon, it can be the other way around. So you always have to be humble. You always have to respect the distance, and because in the marathon, it could change back and forth.
Yeah, that's something I think everyone learns about the marathon after they've done them a couple times. And it's funny here you talk about New York City Marathon, because that was my first marathon too, and I had a very similar experience. Got to about mile 20 and hit that wall, first experience with the wall, and it was such a shock. I had never even experienced anything like it. And any runner who's never run a marathon, you're in for a whole new world of experience when you get to that point in the race and your body starts failing you. It's such a unique experience that I think is very particular to the marathon itself. Now, Meb, with your new book, you are talking about all the lessons that you've learned from all the marathons that you've run. And, I'd love to hear some of those lessons. You're someone who's been running competitively for decades. And now what goes through your head when you're, there you go. there's that book. I can't wait to read it myself. I'm getting a copy, I think, next week. But what goes through your head when you're standing on the starting line before a marathon now? Is it anything different than what you might have been thinking, maybe 18 years ago when you first started running marathons?
No, for sure. I mean, we changed our perspective, and sometimes when I was just getting started, I'm like, am I gonna make it? You have that doubts that say, am I gonna be able to make it? How am I supposed to go? Sometimes we do. The key to success or to life is preparation, and then when you go on 5-minute pace, what I was trying to do in the New York City Marathon, you could only go about 15 miles at altitude, and you're like, oh, how am I supposed to get those 11 miles? How am I going to go the distance? But through intervals, tempos, and long run, things will happen. In fact, I was fortunate enough to have Dina Castor as you can call a mentor, to say, don't worry, everything comes together on race day. But you have those questions, doubts, maybe, am I the most ready guy here, or is there others who are more ready than I am? But it's just said, I'm going to go out there, get the best out of myself, keep pushing. And, that it's going to be challenging at times, but you have to have a mantra that says, I'm going to dig deeper. Am I willing to hurt more than the other person next to me? Marathon, it's going to hurt at one point. You'd rather hurt at mile 24 or mile 23 or mile 25 than versus mile 18, because when you hurt at mile 18, it becomes an ultra marathon. It is, the finish is not there quickly as you'd like to, but if you hit at mile 23 or 24, and you're like, you can cut it out and say, I only got 2 more miles, 2.2 or whatever, and it can happen. But the lessons are, under promise, over deliver. Sometimes going to a race like the Alabama trials in 2004, I was not ready for the race. I was undertrained, but I ended up getting second place to Culpeper, and don't cut yourself short sometimes. Sometimes you're like, I don't know if I could do this, I can't do this in life or in marathon, but you surprise yourself sometimes by doing the small things that make the big difference. Eventually it will come in handy in your life. And one of the other one is just, go out there, take risk, in life, and, don't say, I can't do it. You got to take a risk. For me, like the Boston 2014, I took a risk. I was 5 miles into the run. I said, you know what? Something intuitively told me in inner strength, I guess that you can call it, say, hey, go out there and take a risk. You can see the signs on the street, or you can see posters, Boston Strong, and then you're like, you know what? Give them Meb Strong. If they catch you, they catch you. But if they didn't catch you, guess what? Make them earn it. And when you take a risk, whether it's business and life and other things, it becomes within yourself. I'm not saying just take any dot in the chart. When you have done the preparation and I'm wearing a watch, I can measure myself what pace I'm going. I'm not going world record pace by any means. I'm within myself. Know what you can do and cannot do. And within those things that you can do, sometimes you got to go for it.
Sounds like a lot of what you've learned is confidence in your own abilities and a familiarity with the distance itself, so that you know what you're going to be feeling like once you cross mile 20 and you get into those final miles of the race. There's going to be some adversity there. You're not going to feel good, but you're going to accept it and tackle it.
Absolutely. In the marathon or in life, there's adversity that we're going to face and disappointments. But you can't always throw the towel, and you got to say, you know what? The next day is a fresh day. You have to start somehow, some way to be able to go. And when I ran the 2012 Olympic Games in London, I was ready to throw the towel at mile 21 because people often ask me, do you enjoy the scenery? And I usually am not, because I'm concerned or worried about my competitors, how their form looks like, what kind of, what their mechanics looks like. So I'm analyzing that. But that day, my goal going to the Olympic was, as potentially my last Olympic, I thought it was 99% done, that it was going to be my last Olympics. I said, you know what? I'm already signed up for New York City Marathon. I'm not getting my goal to get a medal or to be top 10. I was 21st place. And I'm like, you know what? Just enjoy, stop here and just get ready for New York. And I said, I looked down my jersey. I said, I'm wearing the USA jersey, and how many people would love to be in my shoes? And my daughters are at the finish line, and 49 other family and friends were at the finish line, and say they're waiting for me. And if I'm going to tell the kids to do the best that I can, dropping out is not my best, And I said, you know what? No matter how many people pass me from 21st place, I got to get to that finish line. I thought I was going to get 50th and whatnot, but positive thinking, being in the moment, kind of changed things. And so surprisingly, I started moving up. I prayed. I said, God, help me get to the second group, and then the second group, there was 8 of us running. I said, maybe I could beat 2 guys, or maybe I could beat 5. And the next thing I know is like with 6 5K left, my coach, he pointed out 6 fingers. He says, and I was running in the next, a Japanese guy. And at that point, it's like, okay, if I could hold on, just finish strong at the end, I'll pick him. I can, I can get 5th place. And then you start thinking things in your head. It's like the wall, 2 miles, like I did hit the wall in New York City Marathon on my first marathon. I see somebody ahead of me that probably have hit the wall. All I can see is a green jersey. I said, you know what? Just keep pushing. Maybe you can get 4th place. And you don't know. Sometimes I talk about that. Our sport's kind of tainted with drugs and stuff. I'm like, well, if that guy finished 4th and he ended up 5th place, if I didn't even know who was in the front, if one of them get tested positive for drugs, that 4th place moves to the bronze medal. So go get that bronze medal, try to get them and get that 4th place. Just you never know down the road. And then, you're interacting with people, and then you see our flag on the side, on the left side. You're like, should I grab the flag? Should I not? Should I grab the flag? Should I not? But because the Santos, who I passed from 5th place to 4th place, is right behind me trying to catch me, and I'm like, no way, I'm gonna move and then tuck the flags on my elbows and stop running, because he's trying to catch you. And then obviously I end up amazingly, I came in 4th. So overcoming adversity, overcoming challenges, and be in the moment. Here I am, 1 minute, mile 13. I was thinking dropping out, enjoy the view and the scenery, and then here, an hour and 10 minutes later, an hour 5 minutes later. I am 4th at the Olympic Games. So be in the moment. Don't throw the towel so easily.
Well, it's just incredible hearing you like kind of recap the last couple miles of the race. I'm kind of on the edge of my seat. I'm sweating a little bit. I'm getting excited just hearing it. And, it sounds so much like one of the lessons that you've learned from all of these marathons over the years is this very simple lesson of staying positive when things aren't necessarily going your way. And this one race you're describing is such a great example of that, because you kept pushing forward. You tried to look for the silver lining in things and not just kind of dwelling on the negative aspects of the race. And you ended up having a very good race. And, I have to ask you, Meb, when is running hard for you? Are you ever in a place where you're not always so positive and looking at the bright side of things? Because I think, a lot of runners look at elite athletes and they think that, everything's always going well for you. You're always, mentally strong. When is running hard for you?
I mean, it's hard for everybody, even for the elites. It's just, we do 100 and 130 miles a week. We try to make it look as easy as possible. But, for someone like myself, it does come easier than most other people. But, I think the 2013 New York City Marathon is probably one of the other ones that my body just gave up on me. Some people say you can go through pain. I'm like, absolutely. When you win and you don't notice, or when you podium on the Olympic, you don't notice because the endorphins kick and your dreams are becoming a reality. You try to smile, look great, and whatnot, but then the next day you can't even walk. But so in 2013 New York City Marathon, my training was not ideal, but the competitive guy that I am, I just went for it. I wanted to put it on the line, and whatever happens, happens. But at 19.2 miles, my mind says, lift your leg, go the next mile, go. My body said, no way. So I have to stop. I really have to stop, and I could not lift my leg just to make a stride. So when you are hit the wall, or when you have no energy, you have no energy. It's done. But then you can look at a positive way that you can, because 2013 New York City Marathon was special for many reasons, because 2013 Boston Marathon, the bombing happened. 2012 New York City Marathon got canceled because of Hurricane Sandy, and technically that was supposed to be my last marathon, because I was ready to retire at that point, and after Nike kind of didn't renew my contract in 2011. So I said, you know what, I can walk. I know how to feel the wind. I know how to run 220, 212, 209. But I want to get to the finish line. But in my mind, I was thinking, how am I going to convince the people that the shuttle that comes when the elite athlete dropped out, or they on the sideline, there's a shuttle that picks us up, and then it was a cold day. I'm like, that van sounds really nice. It's going to be nice and warm and probably have food, but I want to get to that finish line. And how am I going to convince them not to drag me into that van? And eventually my fellow runners kind of supported each other and, hey, come on, Meb, let's go. And then with about 5K left, Mike Cassidy, a local guy from who I met that morning from Staten Island, encouraged me, come on, maybe you can do this. I'm like, well, I'll try like I tried with the other guys that went by me. But I said, okay, I drafted out of him, behind him, and said, let's help each other and encourage each other to get to that finish line. And it was a magical finish, because we were there for each other. I would take a lead sometimes, and he would take the lead other times, and he was stronger on up the hill. I was stronger on the downhill, just let gravity take me. So, but coming the last 400, 500 meters, he was a much more stronger than I was. He can have gone, but the camaraderie of being together, finish across together, we held hand in hand, come across finish, and that's how our friendship began. And it is time when you challenge yourself, when you say, no, I can't do it. Find something positive that are amongst of you. There's thousands and hundreds of people next to you. Just feed that energy and get you to the finish line. And once you do that, that doesn't mean that's your best day, but you can set your goal for the next one. That marathon is behind you. Sometimes when you didn't deliver that you expect to deliver, and it's okay to say, I did this on my worst day. Next time when it clicks, when I'm 100%, it's greater, even better outcome coming. So you have to keep that dream alive.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you speak about you thinking that you might have retired back in 2012. I think the entire running community is grateful that you didn't retire in 2012. And I think it's also a valuable lesson in terms of when runners have a bad race or they face a series of setbacks. A lot of them, in myself included, you kind of start thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end. I'll hang up my track spikes or, my racing flats at this point. But often the adversity that you experience in those moments makes you into a better runner, and you come out of those experiences better, stronger, faster, with a more productive mindset as well. And I think, you came back from a lot of adversity and setbacks at that period of time in your running career to, win the Boston Marathon, and you did so many incredible things. With all these setbacks, and you've had a bunch of injuries, you mentioned losing your Nike contract back in 2011. I think running is such a unique sport in that it prepares people for setbacks and adversity. Has running taught you any lessons about overcoming these kinds of setbacks in your life?
Almost definitely. I think, setbacks and overcoming adversity and disappointment is part of life and part of the sport. When you get injured, it just makes you even more hungrier for the next time. If you can weather the storm, if you can just say, what, this is a temporary thing. And there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. It just, can we overcome that fear, or can we be persistent, go see therapy if we are injured? So for me, it was very difficult, going out almost 8 months without a shoe contract. It was difficult for me. I contemplated retirement then, and I contemplated retirement after the 2008 Olympic trials because, I lost a good friend of mine, Ryan Shea, and also, I'm not going to go to the Olympics, so I tried to rush in to make another Olympic. Runners are driven. We are always driven. The hardest part for the average runners or myself is just getting tiny shoes and getting out the door to run, or looking for guidance. If you said, I have to do this physical therapy, go to the physical therapy, and once they tell us what we need to do, we're gonna do it. But don't let setbacks not from comeback. You're gonna have setbacks, but at the same time, don't let that be kind of like some people. I know a lot of runners that have setbacks and they kind of live vicariously through me because, I shouldn't have retired. I should have given it 1 more year or 2 more years. So when I hear those stories, I'm willing to come back stronger for them as well, because I know I learn from other people's mistakes. I make mistakes myself, but I also try to learn from other people's mistakes and say, what, I know you did this. What can you have changed? And I learned those things to be able to, come back and stronger and do the work. And a cross train is another important thing. When you can't run, you can cross train. When you can't cross train, do your therapy. There's always something that you can do to better yourself. And that allows you to be, when you come back, when you have setbacks, when you come back for a run, you have that much appreciation for it because something was taken away from you. And when you get it back, it's like, I'd rather just undertrain, not overdo it. I'd rather just appreciate that 7-mile run. I can't run half marathon, but that 7-mile or 6-mile feels great. So you have or 10K in that matter. We don't have to do full marathon to be happy or to be able to just, but if you do the protocols of training right, it will get you to that finish, to that, do a marathon again or half marathon, but you got to take baby steps sometimes. And when you take those baby steps, it's a relief because you are back and doing something that you love doing.
I've always found too that it can be very helpful not to make a big decision like retiring or not, trying to go for, registering for a big race, not making those decisions when you're hurt or, you're in a dark place because you're not really fit for those decisions at that time. If you want to quit running, fine, but quit running when you're healthy and you're running PRs, because then you might actually be making a valid decision, but you probably are not going to want to quit when you're setting a bunch of personal bests.
You were in the right mind frame when you make that decision, to say the least. So if you make one when you run really well, but yeah, I remember telling my wife and my brother Howie in 2008, before November of 2007, when the trials were held in New York, that, I guess I can't go to Beijing because I finished 8th place, but down deep, that you can do better things. You could have done really well at the trials, but, in the U.S. is fair and square. You get top 3, you could go to the Olympics. You don't. And that's how life is. And I remember telling them before I left, I guess, personal goal, I said, I guess my Olympics will be New York City Marathon. And that's plain and simple, and I have to do a 1.5 years of therapy. I didn't win in 2008 because the trials were in November of 2007. But I wasn't ready. I was registered to do the New York City Marathon, but I pulled out quietly in 2008 because I didn't think I was fit enough to go for the win. And if I'm not going to be fit enough to go for the challenge of winning, I don't want to partake of that. So, and then I don't want, because when you do that, sometimes you get even more setbacks. So 2009, I said, this is it. I had the silver medalist there. I had the 4-time Boston Marathon champion there. I had James Comby was there, who was a 203 guy, and it was a very stacked, the deepest field I ever assembled. But at the same time, for me, that was like my personal gold medal, and I was wearing that USA jersey and just pointed at USA while I was running, coming to the last home stretch. It was just gratifying because you have that vision, you have that you say, you know what, I want to win another country in New York for many years, and it was almost taken away from me because the injuries or food poisoning and many other things that you can face when you're getting ready for a race. But that time everything clicked, and I was just proud to be able to wear that USA jersey and bring back the victory to the United States.
Now, Meb, you mentioned something interesting earlier that I want to touch on briefly. You talked about cross training, and I think we don't hear as much about cross training from pro runners that I think we should. And you were kind of an early and vocal supporter of cross training. I remember years ago reading interviews with you where you talked a lot about cross training. And, normally elite runners are always talking about how much mileage they're doing or their crazy workouts and things like that. What is your relationship to cross training, and how has it helped your running career?
Between seasons for me, I always rode a bike with my good friend from Rich Levy, who lives in San Diego. His son was the same age with me, and we didn't go to the same high school, but we're good friends. We trained partners on the weekend. So whenever we got injured or whenever we want to go transition between season, we would go bike ride. And then eventually, when I had Achilles injury when I was at UCLA, I started doing agua jogging. I'm not a good swimmer, but I would do agua jogging one day I did it with a belt that goes in the middle of your waist. But after that, I learned how to do without it. And then, so that's when I was introduced. And every time I'm in between season, cross country or track and things like that, I would, when I'm in San Diego, I would ride a bike. And then eventually elliptical. I started doing elliptical, and because you're using different muscles and you're not doing the pounding, and you can put extra. So when I was doing elliptical, just, part of my cross training, and, I can do a tempo run in the morning. Instead of going for another 4 or 5 mile run in the afternoon, I would just do a longer cool down. I might go up to 4 mile cool down, and then I would give me 24 hours to recover, and I would just ride my elliptical for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I'm not gonna get injured because I'm controlling it, the steps in the gear. So I was always been a big prominent of cross training, because, and hand in hand to go with that is nutrition. Nutrition is also important. When you're running, when you're 25 or 27 year old, you can eat anything and everything, and your metabolism's so high, and then that's not the same case after I turned 35. My metabolism just shut down maybe when I was before that. So you start modifying those things, and recovery is important. And for me, I eventually learned, it was very rigid. Tuesday was intervals, Thursday was intervals, Saturday tempo, Sunday long run, and that's fine. I got away with it when I was 25. I was getting away until I was 30, but then I have to start changing to spread days in between, to 9-day cycles. So I would go, if we do Tuesday intervals, I would go Wednesday and Thursday somewhat easy and recover, and then another day go hard, long run or tempo, and then 2 days easy, and then it just worked out for me. And especially, when I talk about Meb for Mortals in the book that was published after winning the Boston Marathon, and we all trying to find an age to be able to be healthy, because being healthy to the starting line is more important than overworking. And I don't know why, even from a gear, to this day, I'm probably the only one of the few, or the only person that wear CEP compression socks, and I don't understand why people can't do that, because it just helps, it reduces the chances of cramping up when you're running. So, but, when to your point earlier, it kind of molded me. I get a lot of advice and overcoming adversity and challenges from Eritrea. When you see things, you read about, you hear things, and you want to be able to just try whatever you can to help you be the best you can.
Well, hearing you talk about your metabolism slowing down at 35, Meb, I just turned 35, so maybe I should start watching what I eat a little bit more.
You're gonna need more protein and less carbohydrate. Put it that way.
Okay, I'll have to review my diet now. um, you know, I think looking back on your book, and I've, like I mentioned earlier, I'm really looking forward to reading it. You go through every marathon and you kind of talk about the race and you pull apart some lessons from each marathon. When you look back on your career, do you have a favorite marathon, whether that's a particular race course like Boston or New York City, or if it's an Olympic Games moment that you had? What's your favorite when you look back on everything?
When people ask me, what's your favorite marathon, the automatic answer is New York. And there's a reason why I did it 11 times competitively. And my first one, and I learned a lot from it. And obviously the New Yorker runners try to have a positive experience, whether you are elite athlete or the middle of the pack or the back of the pack. Experience is important to them. So for me, it's been an amazing experience for them throughout my career. But my most meaningful victory is the Boston Marathon. When I won in 2014, it was, a dream come true and, greater than myself. I set that goal before the bombing happened by sending a text to Ryan Hall and then to Bonnie Ford from ESPN. I said that afternoon, I said, I hope to be healthy enough. She asked me if I was going to come to the race the next year. I said, I'd like to be here. I have to be here to support, but I hope to be healthy enough to win it for the people. So when you have that vision for a whole year and when the Red Sox put the trophy of the Major League Baseball at the finish line, and you want to do that for the runners on Patriots Day. So you have internal self-talk day in, day out for a year. So you have in the back of your head, you train for a purpose, and it's not always the stars align for you. But for me, it all came together, and I took a risk, and I took a big risk. But experience paid a big way for me, because sometimes when I won a silver medal, that was my fourth marathon. I don't want to take any risk when I had, I just wanted to win a medal. And when Stefano Boldini made a move from Italy, I let him go because I don't know how many of those guys that are faster than me going to come back from behind because they're going to the bad patch and overtake me. So I didn't take that risk. But when it comes to Boston, I said, this is probably going to be my last Boston Marathon. And they had, I had the victim's name on my bib, and just draw inspiration. You're doing it for a greater cause, and you want to show the 36,000 other people that are trying to own the Boylston Street from what was a catastrophic moment for us in 2013 to something positive. Everyone wanted to show resilience. They wanted to do something positive, whatever they can to do. And for me to be able to take that risk, it was huge. So that's my most meaningful victory, to be able to say at the very least, and very emotional one also.
For sure. I know I mentioned that I ran the 2014 Boston Marathon too, and it was a special race. There was, because of the bombing the year before, I think the number of fans lining the course were double what they normally were. And it was just an amazing experience to be surrounded by so many fans cheering. I mean, the course was lined from Hopkinton to Boylston Street, 3 people deep at the minimum for the entire 26.2 miles. It was an amazing race, and I think it was so much it was meaningful to the running community that not just an American won that race, but you won that race because of you being such a great ambassador to the sport. And, with Boston coming up in about a month, Meb, let me ask you maybe my final question. If you could send one piece of advice to all the runners who are lining up in Hopkinton next month, what would you say?
Well, what I would tell them is lesson, my marathon number 8 says, do what you can to minimize the exposure to risk, but also accept some things are out of your control. So as you prepare for the race, you done what you can with a month left. You're going to go out there and get the best you can. Take a little bit of risk. You've done the best you can, but at the same time, Mother Nature, like last year, you can't control it. Your pace will continue to slow down, but when you get there, Boston is a little bit downhill. You'd rather go a little bit slower and have a really strong finish. So go out there and have fun. I always tell people, run to win. It doesn't mean get first place, but getting the best out of yourself, to the body that you have, to the talent that you have, to the training that you put in, and make sure you smile at the end because you're running the Boston Marathon.
I love that advice. Thank you so much, Meb. Now, I think I misspoke. I saved my best question for last, which is, where can we find your new book?
Well, you can find any publishing stores. Barnes and Noble is available, Amazon is available, and I think wherever books are sold is available. And it's called 26 Marathons. And obviously, if you want to get it personalized, we're probably going to have it through my website, also marathonmeb.com. And hopefully, we can. I always love meeting runners, or it can be a great gift for people that you don't have to be a marathoner and doesn't have the lessons there. It's not only about marathon, it's about life also, but it's also a great gift to personalize it to somebody who taught you, who introduces the marathon, and and we personalize it the best we can. So it's always good to hear from people to say, hey, I get with the Meb for Mortals or Run to Overcome. Can you give it to my coach, or can you give this to my grandson or my granddaughter, and these things like that. So now the new book, 26 Marathon, can help others achieve their goals in the marathon and other intakes in life.
Wonderful. Well, I'll make sure that when this podcast episode goes live, we'll have links to the book on Amazon and your website as well. If you're doing any additional personalization there, runners should definitely check that out if they want to see it. Meb, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. It's much appreciated, and have so much fun this weekend at the races.
Thanks so much, Jason. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll cut it right there. Meb, this was terrific. Thank you so much for making some time. Like I said, I very much appreciate it. And now your book technically is out Tuesday. Is that right?
Tuesday. Yeah. March 19th.
Okay, because I think I'm going to publish this on Wednesday.
Great.
I'm admittedly going to be out of town through Tuesday, but if I can get it out Wednesday, hopefully we can get you a nice, launch boost, right when the book comes out.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. I see in the background you're running, and I see a spikes on your left shoulder, right?
Yeah. Here, let me see if I can see what you're seeing. Yeah. So I have, those are some of my, medals, and very few of them are first place medals, but.
Nice.
Here's my 2014 medal from Boston. That means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Those are my college track spikes that I'm just I can't throw them away. I have to keep them.
That's good. No, I remember wearing those spikes at one point. I think probably 2002 or 2003.
Yeah. I was in college from 2002 to 2006, and those were my favorite spikes. The Nike Ventilus, I think, was the name of them. Awesome.
No. Keep up the good work. How many marathons have you done so far?
I have done 4. I've done New York City was my first marathon too. I did that in 2008. I ran the Boston Marathon in 2014. I ran a small marathon in Washington, D.C. in 2013. And then what was the other marathon that I'm forgetting? Maybe that's it. New York, Boston, D.C.
We'll come back to you.
Philadelphia. How can I forget my PR marathon? In 2011, I ran my PR at Philadelphia.
Awesome. That's cool.
All right. Well, Meb, I want to be respectful of your time, so I'll let you go. But I'll shoot your kind of your team a note when the podcast goes live, so you'll have it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, Meb.
Right.
Take care.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks.